Hey, it's Ashley and I'm back with another haircut tutorial. Today we're going to be doing a number 3 on the sides, leaving the top a little bit longer, shear cutting it, and tapering the sideburns and the back of the neck. So if you want to know more, stay tuned and let's get started. We are going in with our number 3 guard, and I am just trying to move those bangs out of my way and just scooping out that number 3 so we can leave a lot more weight at the top when we are blending in with our shears. So I'm holding that ear down so I can get behind the ear and not go too high with it. And then I am dipping a little bit lower in the back of the crown so that we can have a lot of weight back there so it's not super short on the cowlick area. So doing the same thing, moving my bangs out of the way, going in with that number 3 guard and removing any bulk, holding that ear down so that we can stay low with our clippers, and then just meeting everything together with that number 3, bringing my weight line all the way around the head. So after I have my number 3 guard mapped out, I'm going to go back in and remove any other bulky weight. Now going into my taper, I'm going in with my clippers closed, and then I'm opening them to a half guard and tapering in that sideburn. Now I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side. Clippers are closed, tapping into the sideburn, opening up my clippers, and then making sure I am scooping them out as I'm going up on that sideburn. Now to keep the sideburns there a little still, you want to not take your taper up too high, and then I'm just tapping in with that number 1 guard, opening my clippers, and gonna go on to the back of the neck. So I'm going in, guard closed, now opening and just tapering out the back of the neckline. After I have that line tapered out, I can start blending with my number 1 guard, and then opening that guard, and it's a 1.5 guard now. Just bringing that back and forth on the back of the neckline so that we can make this a seamless fade. I also like to do this if a client doesn't get their hair cut too often, because it can allow them to have a little bit more grow out with a nice haircut. So I am clipper over combing my taper in to keep this heavier on the fade. So once you go in with that 1, your clipper and comb are going to be able to match that 1 guard, and you can just kind of ride it to the back of the occipital bone where it should seamlessly taper into that number 3 guard. And then you can just go and cross check yourself both ways, so you can go parallel with the ground or you can go horizontal. And then going in with my trimmer work, I like to do all of my dry work before cutting the top. So I'm going to go in and clean up all of the sides of my client's hairline, and we're going to want to give a nice little scoop. Sometimes the sideburn and like the parietal ridge area can make that a little heavy, so you can kind of taper it out with your comb. And then going around the ear, I am going to make sure that I'm using the corner of my trimmers so that I'm getting a really clean, precise cut and not cutting in too much to the client's hairline. After, you can see I am kind of giving this a little bit of a taper on the weight line of that hairline, because the number 3 is a little bit heavier, and if you kind of angle that comb down, you can seamlessly taper in that neckline. And then following that ear all the way to the back of the neck is how I like to line my clients up. Normally this is going to give you their most natural lineup possible, leaving a really nice grow out, and you won't see any lines in the haircut afterwards from like their tan line difference, because you're following their hairline that normally grows, so everything should be the same color. Of course, if your client wears sunglasses really often, you will notice a difference on your tapered sideburns. That's probably my biggest take. Sunglasses. So still just cleaning up the client's neckline and making it really nice and clean, and then going where I started that taper and just getting any neck hairs off of my client and any little baby sideburn beard. Once we've established that side, we're going to do the exact same thing on the other side of the client's head. Now, a good way to make sure you're always working on the side and making them the same exact shape and fade, you can Put your client sideways at your station so that you can see them in the mirror while you work on the other side of their haircut. This way you can check back in the mirror and make sure that everything's looking the same. This helps a lot when you're doing mohawks and mullets, but it also helps when you're lining up a client. So just continuing through, using that corner of my trimmers again so that I can get a really nice clean line without cutting into their natural hairline. And then cleaning up any baby hairs on the face. So I'm going to go ahead and start lining up the back of the neck. Again, I'm going to lightly taper in that number 3 to the hairline with my trimmer over comb, and then follow that line through and really clean it up. I like a very detailed haircut. I think clients really appreciate it. They look extremely clean, and it really shows effort. And this takes me less than 5 minutes to go around the client's entire head and give them a very detailed, personalized haircut. So again, I'm just following from that ear down to the neckline. The client's most natural shape of their neckline is going to be the best for them. It's going to grow out seamless and leave no lines for their tans. So once we've established all of our dry work, we've got our number 3 knocked out, we've got our sides tapered and trimmed, all we have left is to cut the top and blend everything into that number 3 on the sides. So I'm going to use my shears for all of this. Now, if you're not too familiar with shear work, I am using my comb and shears to meet at that number 3 guard with a 45-degree angle, and then I'm going to work that all the way around the parietal ridge and the occipital bone of the head. So this is me working at that 45-degree angle, and I'm using my number 3 guard and then cutting anything that's following out of that to leave the weight but also leave it heavy. Now you can see that's done. We're going to move on to the next side, and we're going to do the exact same thing, just at a little bit of a different angle. So if you're following along, we're going to meet that number 3 with a 45-degree angle from the back of the head, and then follow it from the back of the head all the way around to the parietal ridge. 45-degree angle, and we're blending shear over comb. And we're just going to continue this through. As I get to the front of the head, I am letting the hair fall out because I do want to leave the front a little bit longer, and you can see I pushed that out of my way. And now I'm just double checking for any weight lines in this haircut, and I can meet everything in the back of the head to what I just blended in. So again, we're at a 45-degree angle, which is going to leave us a lot of weight. You can over direct the top of the hair if you would like to leave more weight when they push it to the front. But for me, I'm going to do a little bit tighter around the crown of the head, and then we're going to leave a lot of weight on the front and the bangs. This is going to give that style that the guys are wearing, where it's kind of like permed on top but faded and tapered on the sides. My client has a very nice, beautiful, natural curl to his hair, so he doesn't need a perm, so we can kind of go any length. When you are cutting a client's hair to perm their hair, you want to make sure that you're leaving the top really long, like so long that it's kind of obnoxious, but when they get that natural perm, their hair is going to shrink about twice the time it is. So you want to leave length if it's curled, but then you need to leave it 2 times longer when it's straight. So cutting my client's bangs first before I cut my main part of the client's head, I am sectioning this top out. So we are doing our bangs first, and then we are making sure that the length is about 1 inch longer than where he wants it to sit when they are dry, because his hair is naturally curly. We are going to leave some space for that curl to bounce. And I like to section out these bangs because this is what's going to sit on the client's face the most. This is your length you want to follow throughout the entire front of your haircut. If we don't have our length for our bangs mapped out, we are going to get lost in our haircut and not have everything going to one length. So from this, I want to angle my client's hair a little bit more weight. So when I'm cutting his bangs, I'm going to slightly put my hand where the back of my hand is a little bit higher than the front of my hand. And this is going to give me more of that like shelfy, falling curl look when the client's hair is dry, instead of it all just being at the front of his bangs. So I'm taking a little bit of weight off of the bangs and giving more of a layering effect to the curl when it falls on top of the bangs. So I'm just going to follow everything from what I just cut my bangs to. My bangs are all the same length. My bangs are my guide. So I'm going to grab everything into small sections and trim it at an angle from the bangs. So that's what we're going to do throughout this whole haircut. Once I am finished trimming everything with that weight of the bangs, I'm going to move on to trimming up everything a little bit more in the mohawk direction. As you can see here, I am now working a little bit further to the crown of the head and following my guide I've created throughout the bangs to the back of the head, which when we get one step further from this step, we're going to meet at our guide that we created to blend everything in. So once we cut the corners of those guides, everything would be blended seamlessly into this haircut. So we're going to go ahead, pulling up midsection of the crown, and we're going to cut with a slight angle. Now that I've got all of my sections cut out on the top of the crown, I'm going to pull up my last sectioning, which would be the furthest corner from what I previously cut. Now this is going to meet everything together, and we can go around the head, taking out any weight that we see in this haircut. So to cross-check your haircut, you can go ahead and pull everything straight up in the opposite direction of what you first cut it, and just nip at any corners you may see. Now this will make sure that you're meeting everything together, and that since there's so much hair in this haircut, you're really double checking to make sure you're not missing any hair. So I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So my guide is my mohawk section in the middle, but we've already cut everything in sections towards the back. So I'm going to pull everything up parallel to that and double check for any corners. So just like I did on that other side. Once I get there, I can go ahead and start meeting my cowlick area and making sure that 3 is blended seamlessly into all that long hair on top. And then I'm going to pull everything to the side just because I don't want it to hang over crazy, but I am going at an angle so that we can have our longest pieces of hair towards the front of the face and our shorter pieces towards the back of the face. Now this is just meeting a corner and leaving that length, and we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Now you're going to be able to see me angle my hands to where I am leaving hair longer to the front of the face and shorter to the bottom of the haircut, just to blend in those corners where we don't have any just weird heavy areas in this haircut. Especially on the corners and the sides, we want weight, but we don't want it to look like it's out of place. So now we are going to just make sure the edges of the bangs are blending really nice into this haircut, giving it a light taper to the face and having that curly weight on top. So as you can see, this has definitely given the client a lot better of a face shape. It's definitely slimmed his face down and made the top of his hair not so fluffy and poofy. I think we were both pretty satisfied with this haircut, and we're gonna wash it and then double check it. So I'm probably gonna style my client's hair with some mousse, and this is just gonna make sure that his curl is nice and full during the day, but when humidity hits him, especially being in southern Louisiana, he's not gonna get super fluffed out. So we're gonna towel dry and put the mousse in on damp hair, and then you can use a diffuser just a little bit on this haircut so that you can air dry it and still give it all that body and volume. Now you can see, since I gave him more of that layered look, that he has more curl and texture on the crown of the head instead of all being on the sides and in the front of the bangs. My client was really happy with this haircut, and so was I. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you. Here is my before and after. Please don't forget to leave a comment and like and subscribe. Thank you so much, guys. We're almost at 10,000 subscribers. This is POV Ashlee, and I hope you enjoyed this video.